Look at modern corporate couples today, and you'll see a demographic that earns more money in a single month than their parents made in an entire year. Yet, if you look inside their bank accounts, the vault is often completely empty. Go back to the 1990s, and the math looked very different. A standard household survived on one modest salary. That single paycheck successfully covered the rent, raised 2 kids, and still left enough room to slowly build a savings account. Fast forward to modern urban centers. The default is now a dual-income household. We have couples pulling in salaries that eclipse what the previous generation earned. By all logic, they should be swimming in excess cash, but the data tells a different story. National household debt has climbed from 26% to 43% of GDP. In that exact same period, the national savings rate did the opposite, falling from 8% down to 5.3%. Despite having vastly more earning power on paper, this generation is highly over-leveraged and objectively poorer than the single-income families that came before them. Researchers first spotted this trend hollowing out the middle class back in the early 2000s. A law professor named Elizabeth Warren, along with her daughter Amelia, spent years investigating exactly why families were going broke. They published their findings in a landmark book called The Two-Income Trap. At the time, the universal assumption was simple. If you faced financial ruin, you were probably a low-income household struggling to survive on a single paycheck. This chart compares the actual probability of bankruptcy based on their findings. The highest risk demographic wasn't the single earner, it was dual-income families with children. Even adjusted for inflation, these dual earners couldn't save as much as a single-income family from the 1970s. Adding a second paycheck didn't create a financial surplus for these households. It simply drafted them into a highly aggressive, expensive new financial war. That second income gets absorbed almost instantly by a concept we can call eligibility. Suddenly, couples have the combined capital to finally qualify for premium, high-rise gated communities and elite preschools that were previously out of reach. But an invisible economic trap snaps shut when an entire demographic acquires a second income at the exact same time. The collective buying power of the middle class effectively doubled. With everyone holding 2 paychecks, millions of families started bidding against each other for the same limited assets. This graph illustrates the problem. The supply of prime real estate near top-tier schools is strictly limited, represented by this vertical line. When demand skyrockets because everyone has more cash, the supply doesn't expand. The price simply shoots upward. This dynamic permanently inflates the baseline cost of middle-class existence. Families are now forced to spend 2 combined incomes just to afford the exact same quality of life that a single income used to buy. It highlights a basic principle of economics. When everybody in a society gets more money, nobody actually gets richer. The assets simply become twice as expensive. Beyond market prices, this dual income structure introduces a hidden structural weakness inside the home itself. The modern household is operating at 100% financial capacity just to stay afloat. A single-income family always possessed a hidden insurance policy. If the primary earner lost their job, the non-working spouse could enter the workforce, pick up shifts, or take on tutoring, and generate emergency revenue. Today, that emergency redundancy is gone. Fixed costs like mortgages, monthly car payments, and school tuition are permanently anchored to the assumption that both partners will earn an uninterrupted salary. So if a family experiences a single unexpected shock, a sudden layoff, a medical emergency, or severe occupational burnout, the entire financial structure breaks. Without realizing it, these dual incomes build a golden cage. Families find themselves trapped in high-stress jobs they desperately want to leave, but cannot, because their structural safety net no longer exists. Continuing to inflate your lifestyle to match your total combined household revenue is a mathematical guarantee of permanent financial anxiety. To reclaim stability, you have to change how you allocate your paychecks. You must decouple the lifestyle you live from the total amount of money you earn. Let's look at this mechanism, often called the 1+1 rule. You take the single highest salary in the household, and you rigidly peg 100% of your fixed living expenses to that number alone. This requires a conscious sacrifice. It means actively choosing to rent or buy a slightly smaller home, or living in a less prestigious zip code, regardless of what the bank says you qualify for. Voluntarily shrinking your footprint to fit inside a single income is the only mathematical way to rebuild the critical emergency buffer that modern economics erased. Under this system, the second salary has a strict purpose. It never pays for groceries or luxury family vacations. It acts as an investment engine and a vital risk shield. This chart shows the compounding math in action. By aggressively investing an entire salary month after month, rather than just the leftovers, families enter a phase of hyperaccumulation, building a reserve large enough to eventually sustain the household indefinitely. Beyond the spreadsheet, the psychological freedom this creates is immense. The underlying stress vanishes when a household is no longer terrified of surprise layoffs. Eventually, this amassed capital gives families the option to leave the corporate rat race entirely, without ever having to downgrade the actual quality of their daily life. A second income should never be used to buy a more expensive life. It must be used to buy back your freedom.